Welcome to Two Peas in a Podcast, a series of conversations with people in our community about their journey through life. Grab a cup of tea and join us for our chat. The other thing we got to worry about, of course, is that these chairs are pretty creaky. So folks out in podcast land need to realize this is not our bones.
Welcome to Two Peas in a Podcast. This is our first episode entitled A Face for Radio. I'm joined by my friend, co-host, and fellow parishioner, Simon Lee. Simon, introduce us to the crowd.
Well, thanks, Rob. As mentioned, my name's Simon Lee, and I'm part of the parish here at Stella Maris. And I'm really keen to be having our chat tonight around all the ways in which people experience their spiritual life.
I'm Father Rob Elford, the pastor of Stella Maris Parish, and I'm really excited to be in conversation with Simon. Simon, why don't you tell us about this podcast?
Well, the purpose of this podcast is to give everyone a chance to listen to different people's stories around their journey through life and really to understand what's brought them to where they are today in their spiritual journey. We often talk a lot about how people express their faith through their actions or through, perhaps their activities within the church and within their community. But what we don't often talk about is what is that motivation? What are those personal experiences that they've had that have brought about this outward expression of compassion, this outward engagement within their community, within their parish, within their families, and their workplace? So through the next few podcasts, we hope to really explore the whys of how we got here.
The why. I love the question of why we do something. What is our real core motivations for this? And Simon, you've put together the topic for this first episode, which I'm really excited to talk to you about. Full disclosure here for our listeners. We just finished completing 39 minutes.
39 minutes of gold.
39 minutes of gold. We had such a fabulous conversation. And I went to do the replay.
And our mics were off.
Our mics were off. Nada. Not a sound. Crickets. So, although this might not feel as spontaneous now, I think it's going to be all the more interesting because this is take two. Simon, you are doing a 3-year program at the Atlantic School of Theology that is sponsored by the Archdiocese of Halifax, Yarmouth, called EQUIP. Can you tell us about the EQUIP program?
Yeah, and some of our listeners may be familiar with it. The EQUIP program is a program for leadership formation and development within the Archdiocese. So encouraging all of us who are within the Archdiocese of Halifax, Yarmouth, to increase both our knowledge of theology and our knowledge of the teachings of the church, but also to develop our skills in leadership, our skills in facilitation, our skills in engagement, and our skills in evangelization. The diploma program that comes with the EQUIP series is called the Diploma of the New Evangelization. And that new evangelization, that desire to engage with the world, is what is really coming through so powerfully in this program. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really enjoying it.
I've enjoyed everyone who's gone through the program from this parish. And just yesterday, one of the members of the parish leadership team, her name is Pauline, she's in the first year of the program. Simon, she was absolutely radiant with enthusiasm about the program in the meeting and telling people about how it's going. I'm excited about developing her leadership in the parish. So if anyone is interested in learning more about the Equip program, you're the chair of the hospitality at the parish on Sunday mornings. So I'm sure you'd be open for a conversation about what you're in your third year. So what you've learned about the program. You're in your second year.
I'm in my second year. That's right.
Yeah. Of what you've learned about the program. So.
Yeah, and hopefully we may even have a chance to have someone like Pauline on the podcast for an episode.
That's a great idea.
Because I think her journey, like all of our journeys, is unique and informative for everybody.
Mm-hmm. So today, in this first episode, which here we are in the year 2024, and we're talking about faith in a world that seems to have lost its anchor in the faith, but I still think there is a holy longing inside the human person. And you're about to bring us through some thresholds that help us understand these initial levels of someone curious about the faith. Is that a fair opener?
Yeah, the journey that we're all on, the journey, I think, of exploration, of understanding, both of where we fit in the world and how the world fits within us, has been identified as having some common steps. And these common steps, which I'm going to talk about, many folks may have heard of this concept of thresholds of conversion. And the thresholds of conversion has been popularized in a book by Sherry Weddle called Forming Intentional Disciples. And we were talking about that during our most recent class. And so I thought it would be a good way to talk about how we all move through these steps of conversion and identifying where people are in that journey of conversion from having no active faith or perhaps no concept or relationship with faith to an active hunger, to that need for relationship and a real drive to seek it out and realize it. And so there are 5 thresholds that Sherry talks about in her book, but I'm going to talk about the first 4 that are particularly, I think, interesting for all the folks who are in that journey of life. So the first one is called initial trust. And this initial trust threshold is when people are experiencing something positive, a positive association with Jesus Christ, with the church, with a Christian believer, someone who they know who's a Christian, or something identifiably Christian in their lives. They are experiencing a very positive connection to that. Now, it's important to realize that at this moment, they just trust that something good is associated with Christianity. It's not an act of faith on their part. It is that first step in which they're saying, okay, something positive is happening here. And without starting from that place of trust, they're never going to get any further. And I think, that could be true for any kind of commitment that people are taking. If they can't start with saying, I trust that this is something I want to do, and this is something that is going to bring around a positive change in me or positive results, you're never going to get them any further.
So can you give me an example of this initial trust step?
Yeah, and it could be, again, from a relationship that somebody has with another person who they know is a Christian. It may have been from a really positive experience that they had, perhaps while, attending a baptism or attending a funeral even, or a wedding, or, perhaps a talk. It could be anything in which they've had a moment in which they said, this is good. This is good stuff. Mm-hmm. I feel that something positive can happen here. And so, yeah, it could be from anything, and it could just simply be from that moment in which somebody has visibly expressed their Christian faith to them.
So a deeply subtle movement in a person's heart that opens them up to ask a question, even if the question is only asked in the privacy of their own heart, and they jump on Google to ask a few questions. This is the initial trust. Is that it?
Absolutely. And from that initial trust, we move into the second threshold that Sherry describes, spiritual curiosity. So now that we have that foundation of trust, we're now saying, let's find out more. The person is intrigued. They want to know more about Jesus. They want to know more about his life and his teachings. They basically want to know more about the Christian faith. And that range of curiosity could be from, I'm aware that I'd like to learn more, but I'm not quite sure where to start. Or they could be eager to learn. So they could be delving into different references on the internet. They could be Googling perhaps Jesus Christ. They could be Googling the church. Could be looking at different resources on Wikipedia, YouTube, etc. There are many ways now in our world of communication sharing and information that folks can start that initial curiosity just in their own home in their own time.
Yeah. Do you know, although it is outside of the internet age, I would say some of that initial curiosity phase for me, the spiritual curiosity threshold that we're in, for me, I would say it was in dialogue with my grandmother when I was in junior high school and really asking questions. So it could be, in dialogue with someone you trust.
100%.
And every question and every person might have different questions and a different way of going about this, and that's all okay.
Absolutely. It is the fact that we've started with initial trust. We have this positive experience. Now we want to learn more about, why did I have this positive experience? What are the ways in which people have expressed their faith, their relationship with Jesus in creating that positive experience that I had? Now, in her book, Sherry stresses the fact that at this stage of spiritual curiosity, no one's committing to change anything. You're basically kicking the tires. You're looking to see that, I'd like to find out more. I'm not committing myself to anything. I'm just looking to find out more. And we have a bit of passivity in terms of where the curiosity is taking us. We're saying, I'd like to know more. I'm not saying I'm ready to change anything, but rather than just acknowledging that I had a positive experience, let's find out why I did. What are the qualities about Christianity that has brought about this positive experience? So that's the spiritual curiosity threshold. The underlying movement that's happening, I think, is sharing and relating. Mm-hmm. So to your point, even folks who are active members of the church, and who have an active faith life have had those same movements. And folks will want to experience and understand that movement, that give and take, that those challenges, because, there's no point in which people haven't had doubts, that people have not been challenged, both by, situations in their own life or situations they have observed. But the reality and the willingness to talk about those challenges, and the fact that our underlying faith is what has carried us through, that openness, that sharing, those are the things which I think people will see as being authentic. Mm-hmm. Like, to say that I have questions. You've had questions. There are things that you still struggle with. But throughout it all, your acknowledgement of your need for a relationship with Jesus, your acceptance that the way that you will really be happy is to form your life as close to the life of Jesus as possible. Those are the things that people are looking for. They're not looking for perfection. They're looking for authenticity. They're looking for honesty. And they're looking for accompaniment. And I think that's what all of us need to be unafraid to say, here are the times that I've struggled. Here are the times that I have doubted. Here are the times that I have needed to step back. But through that, I have had an experience. I've had a profound acknowledgement that I need to be in relationship with Jesus, that I am better with him than I could be without him. Mm-hmm. And so, again, our openness and our willingness to be on that journey with people and to share how we've experienced life is about being open and honest and willing to say, I've done it wrong, but I've also realized I can do it right.
I think that's well said. And I think this level of authenticity, this level of sharing in relationship, denies the taking of seeing the other as a project. It is a call to authentic relationship with the other, not taking them on as a project so they come to some understanding of what we think they should be. It is a willingness to trust the Holy Spirit who moves us to simply share in a loving relationship with the other, and to trust the Holy Spirit to do the heavy lifting.
Absolutely. We are there to accompany. We're there to journey with. We're there to share. We're there to experience. We're there to support. We're also there to be supported. Like, I think the realization that folks are having is that, post-COVID and post the postmodern world and so on, is that we are nothing without each other, and by being open to each other and supporting each other, recognizing the value of the other, that's where we see true community and true relationship and true happiness, I think, is coming from that stage or that point of relationship and authentic relationships. And, you talked about projects and again about evangelization and so on. When we ask people to evangelize, we're not asking them to necessarily stand on a street corner or have the perfect words to say or have the answers to all of the tough questions which people have about faith. What we're asking people to do is to live your faith openly, to be that beacon of light and hope, that difference, which is making people say, well, why does Rob act the way he does? Why does he do the things he do? Like, why does he care about this person he doesn't even know? Why is he involved in these programs to bring around positive social change? Like, what is it that he's feeling? Like, what is it that he's doing? And so evangelization is really going to be talking about our own journey through these thresholds of conversion, and where we have, where we've had struggles, where we've had positive experiences, and accepting that we don't have all the answers, but we do have the deep-seated knowledge that we are, again, better off with Jesus than without him.
Yeah, and so much of what you've emphasized here has focused on relationships and relationship building in a healthy way. You lead the hospitality team here at the parish, and so part of why we as a parish have placed such an emphasis on hospitality is so that people are comfortable building relationships, and hopefully building relationships of authenticity so they can share with one another. And whenever anyone shares openly and begins a relationship of journeying with another, you might think you're coming alongside someone to help them on their journey. It won't take long until you realize they're helping you on your journey too.
Yes, there is no doubt that everybody is changed by the other. Everybody is strengthened. Everybody is encouraged and, let's call it, validated by other people. And our relationships with each other is how we define ourselves. And so when we realize that the relationship which we are called to have, the relationship with Jesus, is a relationship like the relationship you have with your family, the relationship that you have with your friends. It is an intimate, personal relationship that you express that relationship through your actions, through your words, through how you interact with others, because you know that relationship, and you know that relationship is something that we're all called to, that God is seeking to have with all of us. And when we have this moment of encounter, in our church setting, or even in our public setting, in our family setting, in our work setting, these encounters, these moments of connection, are ones which we express the relationship that we have with Christ in the way that we relate with others. And so when we have this conversion journey, these different thresholds that we go through, that initial trust, that positive experience is really, it's not just initial trust. It's trust that moves through the whole conversion, right? Because it remains the foundation of that journey.
Absolutely. And trust is the foundation of faith. We can say believe so easily, but trust is where belief grows legs, and it's got to be walked out in this world. It's a deep, deep trust. I love the psalmists where they talk about deep cries unto deep. Psalm 42 comes to mind. As the deer longs for the flowing waters, so my soul longs for you, O Lord. That deep yearning inside a person for deep communion of meaning.
Yeah, and even in our relationships, again, outside of the church, our relationships with our friends, with our coworkers, it all starts with trust. Like I'm going to trust you. I'm going to open myself to you, and we're going to trust each other. And so even that superficial relationship, perhaps at the beginning, still starts with trust. And so it's the same trust that we see expressed within this conversion journey, this conversion relationship. It starts with that trust, and it stays there. And often, when that trust is broken, both in perhaps a personal relationship or a work relationship or family and so on, you got to start again with trust. You got to move back to that trust point to then step forward.
Absolutely.
So we talked already about the thresholds of initial trust and the spiritual curiosity. And as I mentioned at the beginning, right now, no one's made a commitment to change anything. No one's got any skin in the game, shall we say. But now we move into our third threshold of spiritual openness. This is when the rubber's starting to hit the road. And so in the spiritual openness stage, a person is acknowledging that they're open to the possibility of personal and spiritual change. They're saying, okay, I acknowledge that there are things I need to change about my life, or things I need to change about how I act, how I think, how I do. There are things which, if I'm sincere about this journey, I'm going to need to change. And they're open to making that change. They haven't made any changes yet, mind you, but they're open to the idea. And in Sherry's book, she talks about how this is really the hardest stage for folks in our postmodern world, especially those that are coming from a non-practicing background or a non-belief background, shall we say. Because when you're saying, I'm going to change, or I am open to changing, you're saying, well, there's something I got to change. Like you're admitting that, okay, maybe I haven't made the best choices up till now. Maybe the things which, I have said, done, thought about, considered, maybe those weren't the right approach. And so there's a bit of an acknowledgement of fallibility that can be difficult for people, especially if it's something which you're acknowledging that the change you have to make is countercultural. That you're saying that, oh, well, maybe society doesn't have it right on this particular topic. And so this one is probably the stumbling block for a lot of people to say that, okay, I concede that I need to change something.
And the examples you have given are on a moral level of, doing right or doing wrong. Some people, I would say, also are dealing with issues that are more deep-seated in their heart. So they're not typically expressed. They could be, yes, absolutely. They could be expressed as moral issues, but it's a deeper yearning to have a hole in your heart, if I could use that corny expression, filled by something that is much more intimate than simply behavior. It's so attached to the essence of who you are that's where the yearning comes from. And that's, I think, where the change happens, is realizing that there is someone who can fill that hole.
Yeah, and in this conversion journey, that person has already been identified as being Jesus Christ. It's identified as being Christian. And, the initial trust, that initial positive encounter has moved through, a bit of a curiosity, a bit of a learning, a bit of an exploring phase. And yeah, we're now at this point where someone is saying, I've had a positive experience around the Christian life. I've learned more about it, and what I've learned encourages me. I'm now coming to the realization that I may have to make some changes. And so, yeah, we have this acknowledgement of a lack, this acknowledgement of something which isn't there. And so in our spiritual openness, in our third threshold, we are acknowledging that to fill that, to complete that part of ourselves, we need to change something. And so from there, we move into the fourth threshold, the threshold called spiritual seeking. This is where people are actively seeking to know God. They're actively seeking to know what God is calling them to be, calling them to do. It's, as Sherry puts it in her book, you could call it dating with a purpose. Mm-hmm. You're not married yet, but you're seriously looking. And people are saying, okay, Jesus, are you the one? Are you the one that I'm going to give myself to? Is this something that I'm willing to change my life? That I'm willing to accept that relationship? That I'm willing to give up perhaps things in my life that I now realize are not going to bring me into a closer relationship with Christ. And so there's a bit of an urgency, I think, at this stage that, something I need to know. I need to have some kind of expression, some kind of sign, to use that phrase, that am I going to do this? One analogy we could use is the idea of a pot of water. When the pot of water is sitting on the stove and it's cold, and you turn the burner on. And so at the initial stage, it just looks like a pot of water. Doesn't look any different from cold to warm. But in that initial trust stage, the water started to warm. Then as the heat builds and we start to see some bubbles in the water, we could call that analogous to this spiritual curiosity. Like some bubbles are starting to form, some more bubbles. And then the openness, perhaps we start to see the first bubble break on the surface. We're like, okay, perhaps we're gonna think about becoming steam here. We're not committed to steam, but we're gonna think about it. And so the first bubbles start to form. But then when we get to the boil, when we get to the rolling boil, this is this fourth threshold, our spiritual seeking. This is when you're like, all right, I'm boiling now. Let's cook something. Yeah.
And I want to talk about wedding date.
Yeah, exactly. To continue Sherry's analogy, yeah. You're like, okay, I'm ready to do the deed here. Yeah. And so these four thresholds that we move through, we see this building of energy. We see this movement from passivity to a bit of more energy, and then more energy as the rock that's sitting on top of the hill starts to roll. And then it starts to roll faster, and it starts to roll faster. And so we get to this point where, it's almost an unstoppable momentum. And this is when people they're actively seeking for that relationship. It's important for all of us to realize that, these four thresholds of conversion that's talked about in this book, you can exist in any point along that spectrum, right? You could be in initial trust for a long time. You could be in spiritual curiosity for a long time. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you're moving at your own pace, moving in response to the relationships you have with others, the experiences you've had with others. And so knowing that everybody is moving through this continuum helps us to, again, relate more to people's experiences, relate more to people's journey. And every point along that journey is valuable. Every point along that journey has worth. And we want to accompany everybody through each of those steps. You know, we evangelize what we love. We love the person who is not curious at all. We love the person who is developing initial trust. We love the person who is spiritually curious. Like, we want to be with them through that whole process. And we ourselves are on that same continuum. Like, each one of us, even that are perhaps active in our faith, we've all been through these different thresholds of our conversion, but we're also reliving some of those thresholds as well. You know, like, you could argue that programs like Equip or like the Diploma in New Evangelization is refeeding that spiritual curiosity. You know, it's encouraging us to learn more. It's encouraging us to experience more. You know, and I think the openness to change is something we're constantly being asked to have in our lives. A constant openness to say, there are changes I need to make. And, you know, none of this process, I don't think, is going to be one in which once you've checked the box, you're done with it. You know, I think there is as with all our relationships, there's this constant relearning of ourselves and this constant relearning of the other.
Absolutely.
That people go through. Mm-hmm. And so in our podcast series, what I'm hoping, again, that we're going to have with our conversations is this expression of this journey, this expression of these moments of trust through to curiosity, through to openness, through to seeking, and how that movement has expressed itself in the way that they relate with others.
Yeah, I love your focus, as I already said, on relationship, because even God is relationship, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, who calls us into relationship and to healthy relationship with one another. So the emphasis that you've placed on relationship is such a healthy building block for a healthy parish. So thank you for emphasizing that along the way.
A healthy parish, a healthy family, a healthy workplace.
Exactly.
A healthy world.
Absolutely. Well, to me. But I want to tell you a story. 5 or 6 years ago, I was at the McDonald's on Quinpool Road, and I was standing in a lineup behind a man. I know he looked like just an average, middle-class guy. It was clear in his demeanor that something wasn't right, and so I just began a conversation with him as we were standing in the lineup waiting to place our order. And this dear man, his first name is Frank. He's from Prince Edward Island. He was here in Halifax because his daughter was an inpatient on an oncology ward here. And so she died a few months later. And just this past weekend is probably why dear Frank is so foremost on my mind here. He came to Mass here, so I've been in touch with him ever since. But when I reached out to him in that lineup, it was with no other intention other than seeing a fellow human being who looked to be in some level of emotional distress and to reach out to say hello. We have no idea what anyone else is going through. And so that, for me, is an important aspect of Christian evangelization.
Not only that, but important aspect of human society.
Absolutely.
Human relationship. Like,
But Jesus is fully human and fully God, right?
Absolutely.
Not half and half, fully human.
Absolutely. And so we often underestimate the power of just that moment of connection, that moment in which I have, through my words, said, I see you. I acknowledge you. I want the best for you. I want you to be happy. I don't want you to suffer. And, the simplest acts that we all can think about, from, the care that our mothers or grandmothers took in, keeping a clean house, or preparing meals, or, making clothes for their grandchildren, or, fathers who worked and provided and, spent time with their families. Like the value of that acknowledgement of each person and their intrinsic importance, their intrinsic value and their, the fact that you want the best for someone else. Your words are icing on the cake, but your cake is your expressions of those, as complex and as simple, as fleeting or as lengthy as those are. Every one of them strengthens that person and brings them into that human relationship. And it's driven by that relationship that you have yourself with Jesus Christ.
Absolutely. Simon, this has been a fabulous conversation. I'm looking forward to many more podcasts. This is only episode 1, and so we're looking to engage in dialogue with people in our community to get at those questions of meaning, those questions of why they do what they do.
I certainly hope that everything we've talked about hasn't been recorded this time.
I'll check that in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, so in closing, for our podcast, we really thank everybody for listening. We thank you for taking the time to begin this journey with us and to have that, we'll call it initial trust.
Initial trust.
And that initial trust in the fact that these guys are just blowing smoke.
And what's our glue, 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 glue. Is that? No, that's not our closing song. Sorry, I'm now showing my age, Simon.
That's right. It's similar to your pickleball bag that's here under the table.
Pickleball. I love pickleball.
So thanks very much to everybody for listening and for joining us on this podcast. We had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, likewise, Simon. I enjoyed both conversations tonight.
Yes, I enjoyed both.
And they were quite different.
Oh, they were quite different.
There's no evidence of it. You should have seen the one that got away.
Oh, let me tell you, it was huge. It was huge. Yes, and like all good fisherman tales, that first episode will get better and better every time we tell it. So, again, thank you, everyone, for listening. We encourage you to like and subscribe and to click that notification button so that you're able to find out when our next podcast is released here on Father Rob's YouTube channel. We encourage you to comment. Just add a comment to the box below this podcast, or you can also leave a message on the Stella Maris Facebook page, where you can find out more about what's happening in our Stella Maris Parish community.
Thanks very much, Simon, and thank you all for listening. God bless you, and have a beautiful week. Take care.